With that, I am honored today to the Honorable Swisstack.
Thanks. Okay, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being out here today, coming to this event. I'm going to try to have some fun with it a little bit, but I'm going to take a different approach. Instead of reading kind of what's gone on in the city, I'm going to try to show some visuals that include some of the chamber that Debbie has just talked about and some of the things that the city has gone through and hopefully where we're kind of going in the future, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Let me ask a couple questions first of all. How many of you are from the East Coast? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you are from the Midwest? Raise your hand. How many of you are from California? Raise your hand. And anything west, okay, I should say that, thank you. How many of you are from New Mexico? Look at, ladies and gentlemen, that is a first. The second part of this here I want to ask is how many of you have been here for 15 to 20 years? Raise your hand. That's in Rio Rancho I'm talking about. Okay. How many of you have been here from 10 to 15 years? How many of you have been here under 5 years and under? Oh. There's a reason I am saying this, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. How many of you could tell me, what do you look for? I want you to really think about this, okay? What do you look for in a city when you move to a city? Whether it's where you left and you want to bring those good or bad things with you here, what do you look for in the city? Just kind of raise your hand. Yes? Schools. Yes. Affordable housing. Okay? Short commute. Thank God you're not talking about height. Restaurants. What else? Anybody? Low crime. Public safety. Medical services, hospitals. Shopping. Yeah, there we go. Yes, Andrew. Jobs. Anybody else want? Yes.
Top-notch entertainment facility.
I wonder. Really, Gunnar? Really, that was good. Nobody said jewelers? All right. There's a reason I've asked this, and if you were really paying attention, everybody, you talked a whole gamut of activities that you look for in a community when you move here. From public safety to the quality of life issues to taking care of the aging. Rio Rancho was supposed to be a retirement community. Obviously, it didn't end up that way. We are now the third largest city with a population of about 89,000 people. For those that have been around for a while, for those that are New Mexicans that knew that nothing was ever going to happen on the west side of Albuquerque, and you know what I mean. The average age, which I will never see, and you've heard me say this, is 35. Okay? And in addition to that, despite what people think, Jimmy Hoffa's not buried underneath my driveway, but they are looking for him in Meadowlark, New Jersey, where I am from, initially New Jersey. So I tell you this because it's important that you don't forget you're looking for a well-rounded city. And the tough part for elected officials is balancing that out so we don't leave certain aspects that are critical that allowed you to move here. How many of you as business people think that it's important? First of all, you want to get along with the government. I understand that. But how many of you think that the quality of life issues are important to your businesses to bring people into the community? Thank you. Okay, we're going to kind of go, Peter's back there running this for me. Here we go. Since my last day to the city in 2011, and I'm doing something different this year, I am going to kind of show slides and talk a little bit about this. It's almost like a town hall that I was doing when I go through this with slides. But I want to kind of categorize what's happened in Rio Rancho over the last year in particular into maybe three major categories. I want to talk about change, which I think is important. What's happened this past year? I want to talk about some new additions, because the city itself has done some changes and new additions to our elected officials and other areas. And I want to talk about some accomplishments, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about the future and where I hope we're going. Leadership changes. Debbie introduced two of the councilors here. This past year, we've had 3 new city councilors added to the governing body. We had the retirement of James Jimenez, our city administrator. We've hired a new city clerk, a new city engineer, a fire and rescue department chief, and a human resources department director, and yes, a public works director. Those things have happened over the last year in a city of about 89,000 people, which causes some adjustment problems, but you want to know what? The city continues to move forward, and we continue to work collectively as a team. New city manager. Jim Babin is Air Force, right, Jim? That's right, Air Force. I want to make sure I have this right. Jim Babin's a trooper. This is not his first acting city manager job for the city of Rio Rancho. He has stepped to the plate, and he has done this 2 or 3 times to help us through some difficult times. Our first review of the application starts October 15th, for those that are interested, because it does affect our community. In addition to that, the governing body will do the screening initially, just so you understand the process. They will then recommend 3 to 5 names to me. In those 3 to 5 names, I will interview those people, and again, refer back to the governing body for their approval. So that process is already working. That process, we've already posted the positions, and so we're going to start to look at that next month. The other thing that's kind of important that I think you should know about, and that we're fortunate to get this year, is that we're going to add another state representative that will be elected out of Rio Rancho. Actually, 2 full bodies in Rio Rancho now, okay, which is important, especially if you're the 3rd largest city. The second thing, which the bulk of it is that we're going to end up with a new senator. And again, the bulk of the voters live in Rio Rancho, so theoretically, if we get out and vote and think it's important for our community to represent this city and the state, we will try to have that person elected out of our community to be able to do that. Last Wednesday night, the governing body, I think, did a good job in compromising and trying to come up what our legislative priorities were going to be for the city this year in Santa Fe. So, do we have any state senators or representatives here? Or that you want to say are here? Okay. First, we're going to ask for some $7.3 million for installation and replacement of water lines, which we know. Some of the water lines are older than the city is as a city. Okay, so we want to replace some of those, and some of them weren't done to code back in those days, as the code has changed a little bit, and the antiquated coding back then is now we're paying for, because again, we were supposed to be a retirement community. The second thing is $2.1 million for North Substation for the police department, $1 million for renovation for Fire Station number 1, $2.2 million for construction improvements, and I know you guys don't want this road, West Side Boulevard, okay? In addition, $5 million to continue the expansion of Unser Boulevard. I know you don't want that either, okay? And then $10.58 million for right-of-way acquisition to acquire the property necessary to start building Broadmoor Boulevard that connects it to UNM Hospital and the services that will eventually come to that downtown area. And then, how many of you visit the senior center? I'm proud of you. Raise your hand. Be proud. You can do that. Okay. $500,000 to look at renovating the parking lot to kind of get it up to ADA standards. The governing body voted on that. That's what will go to our lobbyists. That's what I will be up there trying to push with our legislators to help us out with those. And if you look at these carefully, there are things that tied together. So the governing body tied this together on money that we put in as a community or money we may have received from other government entities. Next thing, local government changes. Okay. First of all, the voter ID requirement for the future. Now, all municipal elections is required. We're one of 2 cities in the state of New Mexico, us and Albuquerque. The second thing is adding an additional status. And despite what you read in the paper, okay, or see on TV, the controversy of the full-time mayor. Okay. So we've kind of put that to rest, I think, for this year, and I think there's a general consensus that by 2014, people need to decide what they're looking for in that full-time mayor, and I agree with that. I really agree with that. And I think what's happened is that the citizens group that came back to us Wednesday night, I think did a good job in trying to put their arms around that hot issue. And I think what they did is kind of agreed, the governing body and myself and others agreed that we'll let this be addressed in the election in 2014. Impact fee moratorium. So let me kind of talk a little bit about this here. And I think, and again, I was very articulate about this. I wasn't necessarily in support of it, but it passed. And as a result of it passing, I'm on board to help make this successful so that we could be successful by reducing 50% of the impact fees for housing and 100% of the impact fees for businesses. And I think why this becomes important is because the theory behind this, it's going to stimulate some economy in the city of Rio Rancho, which I think we all want. If there's one thing that connects us, the umbilical cord, is the fact is we want to continue growth in a positive direction. We want to be able to provide jobs for people. We want to be able to have our kids, which are our greatest assets that Debbie was talking about, find jobs in our community, and we don't ship them to Arizona or to Texas or to Colorado or, well, forget California. But we want them to stay here. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to track, because I think it's important, because if this actually works, then you want to extend that moratorium on impact fees. So we're trying to make sure we can track and correlate this to impact fees, that growth continued in our community. Next, new to Rio Rancho. The last 12 months have been historic for Rio Rancho in terms of new services, facilities, businesses that actually came to our community. All too often you're over here. We're anti-business, we're anti-this, or over here. And you go back, people are talking 15 years ago in some cases, okay? Which tells us how difficult it is to change. So let me kind of talk about what's happened. And most of you know some of these things, but I'm trying to tie a picture. If you put this in perspective, for 12 months, in the worst economy in my lifetime, okay, in my lifetime. First, we all know, Presbyterian Russ Medical Center. 92 beds, $190 million facility, approximately 500 jobs. Patient volume prompted already, which they weren't even geared for. They were going to wait some time, that they had to open up the 5th floor. Now, I don't know whether that's due to the pregnancies and the birth rate that's going on in our respective community, because it's young, because they're giving birth to a lot of people in that hospital, which is good. But the fact is, the hospitals in our community, people can go there. If my mother or my brother or my sister was to get sick, I don't have to drive to Albuquerque anymore and spend nights there, come back to work. I can do this within our own community. This alone is helping spur some of the economy issues that you will see start to grow in that respective area. Other big issue. How many of you have been to the UNM Sandoval County Regional Medical Center? Okay, I want to thank Sandoval County, I want to thank the voters, I want to thank everybody that was involved in making this a reality. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to acknowledge this. You're paying some higher taxes in some ways, but there will be benefits for the future as we go through this process, because these anchor tenants will help attract some of the businesses in conjunction with the theory of impact fees and so forth, that I'm hoping are going to help us establish a strong, diverse economic base. So, 300 jobs at UNM, which is a teaching hospital, which a whole new direction, so you'll have a lot of people coming into this here. $143 million facility and 72 beds. It's interesting how our community is now starting to, when we've talked about medical services, where we didn't have anything before, is now becoming a mecca in attracting medical services. And we're going to talk about some of the retirement communities, and we're going to talk about some of the new senior center hopes that we have. So that opened up, 400 jobs. How many of you are veterans? Okay. Veterans. U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs Outpatient Clinic. Have any of you seen that? Okay. It's, I think, the largest one in the state of New Mexico, the way I understand this. And it really minimizes your trips of having to go all the way to Albuquerque. What are they providing over there? They're providing blood draws, women's health, telemedicine, behavioral health care services, EKGs, evaluations by doctors, and routine lab tests on that respective site. That was a big step, because we have one of the highest veteran ratios in the city of Rio Rancho compared to the whole state, which is kind of interesting. New businesses and jobs. And I'm going to kind of take a page from the Chamber of Commerce's book on this one here, okay? Though some of this has involved a lot of people, I acknowledge this. And sad to say, ladies and gentlemen, I've eaten at almost every one of these places that has food, okay? So it can tell you I don't cook. I do windows and laundry, I don't cook. First of all, new businesses range from gyms, restaurants, medical offices, gas convenience stores, a new professional indoor football team, and much more. Diversity. Diversity to try to start to meet everyone's respective needs in our community. So, what ends up happening? The Rio Rancho Chamber of Commerce reported 691 brand new jobs were created by businesses and 62 expanded jobs for existing businesses in 2011. For January through August of this year now, I'm trying to put this in perspective, okay, this year, 2012, the Chamber reported businesses created about 560 new jobs and expansions. Again, I'm going to keep going back to this, in the worst economic times of our history. A couple notes. Stream Global Services has announced plans to hire an additional 250 new people. Okay, 250 new jobs. Alliance Data, how many remember Victoria's Secret? That way back when Noreen Scott helped bring in everything else. Her help and a lot of other people's help helped transition that so we did not lose those jobs in our respective city. So it was interesting how that building started, what we lost for a while, and how quick Rio Rancho Economic Development was able to get that filled way back when, in the early years of the 90s or 2000s. So again, they saved 350,000 new jobs. All right, new single-family homes. I do not think we will ever be, and I'm going to say this, and it's not a negative, I'm trying to put things in perspective, that you will not see the home growth like you did in 2005, 2006, and 2007. Tell me anywhere that you could sustain 2,000 to 3,000 permits a year. You can't do that for an indefinite period of time. But if you look at our city's history, okay, we did that consistently almost since the inception of us as a city, from 700 to 800 permits a year. That's our history, that's our base, that's what we should strive for, and when the peaks come, be in a position to turn it around. So that's kind of what's going on in that area. But let me give you some fun facts, because this may not seem like a lot to people, but to me it's a bright, because I've sat in the seat during the most tough times. And so in the calendar year 2011, so we always use 2005 and 2007 as our arguments that this is the greatest time, we had all these permits. We only issued 301 construction permits in 2011. In 2012, the calendar year, from August, up until August, to January to August, we've issued 306 permits, and it's not the end of the year yet. So we are creeping up again to try to get to at least, hopefully, our base over a period of time. And hopefully these impact fees are going to help us do that. Okay, expanded senior living options. I'm going to be a user, okay? So it's kind of interesting. We're building the West Side Boulevard, and we're going to develop another 131 units designed in that area. Southern Boulevard, which is around 24th Street, we're building phase 1 of a 30-bed unit. Medical services, taking care of an aging population, educated kids, educating our kids to kind of help sustain those jobs and provide the workforce to sustain those jobs. They're starting to tie together is what I'm trying to paint a picture of. Recreation. Jay Hart, where are you? Over here. I want to thank Jay because it's kind of interesting. Again, Jay, just for fun, what's the size of your budget? $5.5 million. We've built a school every single year since 1999, which talks about a young population. His budget's 5.5. Could you help me out with this for a minute? How big is Albuquerque's budget when you were there?
For the same.
Yeah.
It's about, I would say,
$120 million. The city of Rio Rancho's budget's not even that big. Okay? So let's talk about the North Hills Community Welcome. And what Jay has done successfully, what Parks and Recreation has done successfully in community services is build relationships. Okay? Relationships with Sandoval County, relationships with the community. So North Hills Community Welcome, the new park that came about through the work and support, and some of you have heard this organization, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. They did the work in partnership with Lowe's and a variety of community organizations and volunteers, including our Parks and Recreation departments. Next big thing, okay, after residents and children approached the city about adding an additional park in a site, okay, in Cielo community, there was no land there. And it's funny, let me kind of give you this little bit tidbit here. There was no land there, and because that community was built on a little less than 25 acres, it met the city's code back in those days that we didn't need a park. So what happened? No park, but all of a sudden, kids playing in the streets, kids riding their bikes, have no place to go, kids build a fort in the dirt, which I used to do anyhow, but this was in the Mesa, but times are different. And so what ended up happening, those kids in conjunction with their parents approached us. We approached AMREP, we got 2 parcels of land that we were able to put in a park in that respective area. Money came from, the land came from AMREC, money came from impact fees and CBDG money to help build that park. And not too distant future, we're putting a skateboard park in that area also. This is what happens when people start to work together. This is what happens when a need comes up. You can't just say it's not our responsibility anymore, because that's what that community wants in that respective area. We also, as you well know, how many of you have been over there by High Resort, seen the new dog park? How many of you have dogs? Okay. The new dog park's over there. You have some tennis courts that are over there, and because I can't play racquetball anymore, I have to start playing tennis, so I'm going to change my direction of my arm now. And so what's interesting over here, that's the quality of life that I heard some of you talk about, okay? And so those things occurred in that respective year, that respective time. And again, thanks to Pulte Homes. Anybody here from Pulte? Okay, they helped build that because that was part of their agreement, but even more important, that was also part of the impact fees that went to that respective area that were designated for part of that operations, which is a good thing. Fire station number 7. Again, this was kind of done in the fall of 2011. Took a while to build this. We put some money into that. A lot of money came from the previous administration, $1 million to help build that. Chief Meek, where are you? Is that the second busiest fire station now?
Yes, sir.
The first one is on Southern Boulevard. This is the second busiest fire station in the city of Rio Rancho, and that thing has only been up
November's 1 year.
November, 1 year. 1 year. So again, a cooperation with the state and locals. Again, the city council in their wisdom, and Scott Sinsenbauer and his crew, looking at new water bulk rates. We had a lot of people robbing money from our fire hydrants, okay? We had a lot of people trying to sell water at a higher cost, and it wasn't convenient for people who were living off the city grid where water was accessible. Okay, so what do? We built a water station. In that water station, we got some money. Sandoval County helped us recoup some of that money back. And in addition, we're charging, and we're going to evaluate this to see if we're at the right rate. We're charging $10 per 1,000 gallons. And so we're monitoring this to see whether or not that's help offsetting the costs for the future. Make sure that we're able to recoup what we're trying to do, because we have to expand our water system in the state, in the city. New and improved water infrastructure. How many have been on Northern Boulevard? That widening over there. Yes, we still have another leg to go. How many of you have been on Lisbon or Tarpon and you're starting to see some sidewalk movements begin to be put in? Now, let me explain. When you're a retirement community, you want to make sure that you can have the affordable housing. Oh my God, Tom Swisstack now is not young anymore. Tom Swisstack now needs sidewalks. I have children that need to stand on sidewalks so they're not in the streets when the buses come by. I want to be able to put bike paths. I want to be able to put walking paths. I want to be able to. We are now going back to communities and retrofitting them because the public is asking for these amenities in their respective neighborhoods, and rightfully so. But interesting, it starts to bring up the value of your home also. And so we're going back and retrofitting some of these areas, and we'll continue to do that, chipping away, because this will be an ongoing project for a long time. Okay, the famous Rio Rancho. Yes, I have talked, the two largest things I ever talk about are snow and dogs. Okay, snow and dogs. So it's interesting because we've had some snowstorms, and it's kind of crippled our city a little bit, but everybody blames the city for Patriarchal Highway 528. We don't care that it's a state road. We don't care we don't get any money to take care of it. You're at fault, okay? So we're working with the state to try to see if they can give us some equipment to take care of the road as it relates to Rio Rancho. We're also in a position that I think what we're trying to do, and we have, bought 8 new snow plows. Instead of having to buy these vehicles, and sometimes because you don't use them every single time, we're now mounting these on some of our trucks and our vehicles that I'm hoping are going to be able to clear some of the neighborhoods, clear some of the areas that people need to get out, clear some of the bus stops and so forth. So we bought 8 of them, and we'll see how it works. And this year we'll probably have no snow. Okay? So I just want to say that. New public art. And it's interesting, nobody mentioned art here, but I knew that in the back of your head you were kind of thinking of this, because I think what's important over here, way back when, okay, last year or 2 years ago, I think last year, we did or 2 years ago, 1% of the arts. We actually put into place 1% of the arts. It's good to have a community, but how many of you like to see some cultural activities and art begin to be developed in our respective community? If you do, raise your hand. They're kind of like libraries, okay? You want to educate your public. You want them to have an appreciation of their community. You want them to have a cultural base of why they come and live in the city also. And I think that there, from Skafka to the Gateways to Lupus, part of the UNM project, those are pieces of art that we're starting to put in our community. And as other bond issues may come up or other public projects may come up, we're hoping to continue to chip away at this in a methodical way. Accomplishments, Rio Rancho is blessed. Money Magazine, how many of you picked up a copy of Money Magazine this year? Guess what? Rio Rancho ranked 58th best place to live. And let me kind of talk about what and why, I think, which is kind of interesting. Last month, the national publication Money Magazine ranked Rio Rancho as the 58th place to live because of communities and population ranging from 50,000 to 300,000. So we weren't just looking at some little number here. We were compared to communities up to 300,000. The magazine indicated that cities at their top 100 list offered what families cared about, and that's why I asked this question. And tell me if I missed anything that you may have said. Job opportunities, great schools, low crime, quality health care, and plenty of things to do. Now, with all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, and I say this from my heart, for being 30 years old, okay, we're not doing too bad in this city. Albuquerque's 300 plus, you've heard me say this, Santa Fe or parts of Santa Fe are 400 plus, Corrales is 1,000 years old. I'm only joking, Mayor Gasteyer, I promise. But the point being here is that we're 30. This is our 3rd year of being ranked in the top 100 cities to live. 3rd year, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Next, local, that's it, you can. And I'm just going to say this. Do me a favor, Rio Rancho employees, please stand up for a moment. This is don't be embarrassed by being a government employee. Don't let the media get to you on this one. No, I'm only joking. Okay, let me explain something, okay? Because I truly believe we as elected officials, our role is a major thing. It's to set policy. It's not to micromanage. It's not to go and tell people what to do. It's to set policy as a collective wisdom, which includes the mayor, okay? He has no business going off and trying to do some of the things, but it's a collective wisdom. And the reason I say that, these are the people from libraries to parks and recreation to finance, et cetera, personnel that help our government stay afloat and to help us work through the difficulties that we don't do perfect to try to get to being a good community and a community that's user-friendly. Please give them a big round of applause. All right, fiscal year, Olivia. Just stand up for a second. I got a joke with Olivia. I joke with her because she's so tight she squeaks. I can't get a penny out of her, okay? But let me tell you, because of Olivia, and I'm going to tell you because other elected officials, you know what? You'll never hear me talk bad about elected officials from one term, on one series of elected officials to the next, because they've each done something. Don't sit down, Olivia. Come on. They've each done something to try to make this community better. They've each done something. And because we had to make some tough decisions last year, because we had a weak budget infrastructure, there were holes in our budget that weren't solid for our future. And I know none of you have to do this in your own family budgets. I understand that, okay? Or none of your businesses. I understand that. We gave a 2% pay increase this year, the first time in 3 years or 4 years? 4 years. We did no layoffs. We've hired we bought 12 new police vehicles, added a position for fire and police, new ambulance, and the reserve fund is approximately 13% of the city expenditures, okay? Which is a good reserve fund, but again, we didn't have that reserve fund over the years. What was it back when?
Fiscal year 11, it was 8%, which is the state minimum requirement, so it was basically 0 above the state minimum requirement.
So we had 0 above the minimum state requirements. So that's why I say she's so tight, she doesn't let it go, okay? But she's kept us solid. And for that, I'm indebted to her and the department and the elected officials that made tough decisions. Thank you. And again, we continue to have about 84 positions frozen in the city, okay? Now, library services. Bill, where's Bill? Is he around? I thought I saw him. Here, you can raise your hand. You're running a good organization, Bill. Okay. Let me explain. Rio Rancho Public Libraries continues to set new records, and it's kind of interesting. Bill's just taken from reading books, okay, to being involved in a litany of things, everything from special programs to books to DVDs to CDs to literacy programs to special events for all ages. And the city has what? 2 libraries, ladies and gentlemen. 2 libraries. Bill has escalated the libraries to the next level as our city continues to grow and the demands continue to grow. And his budget hasn't increased much at all. If anything, it's gone down, okay, down. Next, Jay Hart again, I love this. We always wrestle with Winterfest. Where are we gonna have it? When are people gonna come out and look at this? And we had conversation, Jay looks at me like I had 2 heads. I says, we should try to do this downtown Rio Rancho. You mean out there in nowhere, Tom? What about Southern Boulevard? People are gonna get upset, people are gonna do this. For anybody that went to the last Winterfest, okay, and this year is going to be better, you had more people at that Winterfest than the city's had ever. It was confined to an area that you could do a multitude of things, and I happened to ride into a GTO. Was it a GTO? Yeah, I just want to make sure I had the right car. From Harris Jewelers. But it was perfect because you had everybody moving, people standing around the whole parade. You didn't have gaps, okay? People were there. For that, he took a chance not to get the public upset, to bring people to an area that they had plenty of parking. We didn't hear from businesses that were occupying their spaces. So congratulations on the Winterfest, and I look forward to another one. Okay, Gunner. Gunner and Matt Geisel. Everybody knows this. The council debates this. We already know it, okay? We inherited the Santa Ana Star Center, okay? And I'm looking at the Santa Ana Star Center, really, ladies and gentlemen, as a quality of life kind of issue. Maybe long after I'm gone, it's diversity that will continue to move because under the leadership that's there now, under the management, it's starting to show some progress. How many of you have been to Cirque du Soleil? Or any Walking with Dinosaurs, the list goes on. How many of you have kids been to some of the rock concerts over there? Oh, there you go, you're brave. The reason being is that, yes, we're putting in approximately, Jim, I got to look at you, or Olivia, approximately $3 million out of general fund to help offset the cost of that site. The answer is yes. And I'm not going to cover it up. The answer is yes. But the interesting thing here, ladies and gentlemen, okay, is that we're trying to look to the future and what this facility might mean to our community. Just like UNM, just like CNM, just like some of the other things that occurred, we have to look to you. How many of you have children? How many of you wish they weren't yours sometimes? Or wonder if they were yours? Okay? The point being here is that anymore, I'm not looking out just for myself. I'm looking out, what does the generation way behind me need to kind of stay here? What's going to attract them? What's going to get them engaged? What's going to keep them in our community? What's going to make them feel that they're a part of basically an adult world? And so we have to start building those things. Environmental citizen engagement, you know, this is no joke. We're working on becoming even better as good stewards of the properties that we have, as good stewards of our environment. This year, we had 37 citizens trained as tree stewards to help maintain trees in city parks. And I don't know how many of you are going around. I was walking with Jay the other day at one of the parks and saying, this tree's dead, we're going to have to kill this. Oh, we're going to have to cut it. This is dead, this is dead. This is what our tree stewards did. And you can see the difference, what they did in a park and how it starts to take shape and how that future, i.e. that tree, is beginning to add to the quality of life and the appearance of that respective park. So again, I want to thank that. More than 100 new trees were planted this year in our parks. Rio Rebate, he's not here, water guy, okay? Larry Webb. We had this for a while, we stopped it, and we started it again because we had a little money to do this. We're starting to pay a $100 rebate for people using high-efficiency toilets and high-efficiency clothes washers. I wonder if you could do that if I just got my $100 and said I'm just using a scrub board. I don't think he'll do it. All right, the other thing, again, 30 years old, ladies and gentlemen, where you have other communities that haven't gotten to this level or they're just beginning to get to this level, direct injection of water into the aquifer so that we can start to sustain our responsibility in putting water back into the system. We piloted that, was it this year? We did that this year, or started last year a little bit. And so we're watching to see how this works. And if this continues to work, we'll look at how do we expand this as we move forward. Again, trying to make sure that we're contributing to what we have to in regards to the water and the aquifer here. Seniors Resource Guide. How many of you have parents that are still alive, live in this community, or how many of you are at the seniors, okay? The most difficult thing for our seniors is to figure out where to go in Sandoval County and to get services. And it's amazing, between Albuquerque and Rio Rancho and Sandoval County, there are a lot of services for our seniors. There is a great collaboration with Parks and Recreation and I think parts of Destiny Center and some other people who help put together what I think is one of the best resource guides for seniors that I've seen in a very long time. They just didn't limit it to our backyard. They talked about the Regent. The Regent. The future. Okay, let me get through this. Mariposa. All right. Thanks to Sandoval County, thanks to other people working on this issue, you'll see new legislation to kind of minimize or make sure that these issues don't occur in the future. But I think Jim Babin, the PID board, the people that sit on that PID board, the fact that the elected officials have taken over that responsibility now, we're making every effort to minimize the increase in that value, that property value, so people can continue to maintain their dream, and as equally as important, so that community could grow. Okay, is it easy? No. Okay, but I believe in the end, this is going to work out. And from this mistake, this error, because I don't think government was part of this, but I don't think they were malicious, we will help change the law to make it a little bit better for the future. In addition, the park above. And this is interesting. It's been a little battleground for me, but it's been okay because I think what ends up happening, there are priorities. And again, maybe it's because who I am as a person and people I've worked with most of my life. This park above is an inclusive park to work with people with disabilities. And it's always alarming to me when I go to the school system and I see people in wheelchairs using blowing devices to be able to move. And I know that those people aren't participating in parks or recreational activities in our community. I know that. We plant them in front of a TV. There's a high death rate among those people. So thanks to Governor Suzanne Martinez, thanks to Senator Sapien, Representative Padrell, Representative Lewis, Senator Ryan, Senator Lovejoy, Magdalena, they helped bring us some money. Thanks to the commission the other day, and last night, and thanks to our governing body, approved money to take us closer to $1.7, $1.8 million. And we're looking at sites that now might be better suited for this park within our own community and in our own park. And I think what this will do is start to talk about how we treat the people in our community. And somebody was explaining this to me the other day, and I never thought of this, and I really like this, and I'll remember this. The point being is that this is a segment of our society. We shouldn't alienate them. We shouldn't separate them. They're part of who we are as a community. And Rio Rancho Public Schools alone has over 2,000 people that have special needs. In addition, governing body is going to start looking at the water rates. We have a special meeting coming up session to kind of talk about those, so we can talk about the infrastructure, talk about the water, that we can sustain our growth in our future. And so we are going to continue to take on these big issues. We're going to continue to look at the staffing needs for fire and police, because you don't want an overabundance of one or the other. You want to have this balance of quality of life and public safety. So what happens is that they work hand in hand, and what ends up happening is that you always want to make sure your community is safe. Because if it's not safe, people don't want to move here. If you don't have the quality of life issues, good school system, etc., people aren't going to want to move here. So we're trying to walk that line and find the compromise and balances as we go through this process, but we continue to look at that. Again, strategic plan. We need to do this, and I'm recommending that we really look at this carefully, and I encourage us to kind of look at whether or not we have the capability of going out for bid to do this, or we have big corporations that might help us to do this, so we make sure we're getting a broad base of our community to start to update our strategic plan that we did once before in 2009, and we want to get it together now. Why? We really like to know where we're moving. What does that moving look like? How we're shaping our community? Because I remember, and Noreen, you got to help me with a date here, 1995 or 96, somewhere right around there when I was mayor first time, we actually brought in a national person to help us set back in those days a strategic plan that we followed. And the stuff that was in that strategic plan, if you get past it and look at it, is relevant to the stuff that we're doing today or has occurred as a result of today, from education to public safety to businesses. Okay, Tom Swisstack. This is a Tom Swisstack issue, so I don't want to blame the governing body, okay? I really think we need to kind of look at this carefully and get on board, because I think the cell phone usage, the texting and so forth in our cars is getting a little bit more ridiculous in our respective community, and I think we need to look at an ordinance that kind of addresses this issue. Everybody around us has the ordinance, but you come to Rio Rancho, we don't have it. And I think what's becoming important is because we do have young people and we have parents, okay? And we have Tom Swisstack. We shouldn't be texting as we're driving. It's amazing the split second how you could rear end somebody or get into an accident or hit somebody because we're not paying attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to also talk about, we want to continue to work with you. We want to continue to work with the business community. So you have two options. You can all gripe and complain about what we're not doing. Okay? That's real easy to do, actually. It doesn't take any courage to say we don't like what people are doing and stick your necks out. What it does take courage for is to extend your hand, we extend our hand, and start to figure out how do we work together to make this a better community. I think what has happened is that we've gotten so used to just criticizing that we forgot how to work together as a team and start to solve the issues that this community will have now and in the future. And I think, in ending, I want to say thank you very much for this time. I hope that you kind of understand where we're going, and I want you to kind of understand that we are going to continue to increase businesses, we are going to continue to build the future for this community, and it's going to be for our children, and we are going to take care of every aspect of our people in this community. The great Vince Lombardi, individual commitment to a group effort, that is what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, a civilization work. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. God bless.